In the silence left behind by my husband's passing, my son began to question a bond between us that neither of us could understand. What happens when grief and love collide in the most unexpected way? The silence in the house had deepened since Michael's departure. Excessively silent. The silence enveloped the room, seeping into the very walls, filling the voids between the rhythmic ticking of clocks and the soft creaks of the floorboards. I had always imagined that silence would bring a sense of peace, perhaps even a comforting embrace. Yet this particular silence, it offered no comfort. It resonated with emptiness. More than half a year had passed since the day of the funeral. At times I find my hand stretching across the bed in the stillness of night, yearning to encounter the familiar warmth of his presence, the gentle rhythm of his breath beneath my fingertips. My hand would brush against the cold sheets, and I would lie there with my eyes wide open, striving to recall the precise cadence of his breath in the enveloping darkness. Throughout it all, our son Daniel stood as my unwavering support. He made a point of checking in more often than necessary, consistently extending offers to swing by, assist with groceries, or tend to that leaky faucet that Michael never quite managed to address. At 32, he had matured into a man, his broad shoulders and kind eyes reflecting the journey he had undertaken. They possessed an air of restraint, as if they were concealing a profound sorrow or an even more intricate emotion beneath the surface. On that Saturday afternoon, I found myself folding laundry on the couch, the television murmuring softly in the background, airing reruns of a show that barely captured my attention. Daniel entered as he always did, his voice echoing through the house. "Mom, in here, sweetheart," I said, tossing a towel into the basket. He entered the room, a grocery bag clutched in one hand, wearing that shy smile that transported me back to when he was just 6, attempting to conceal the mud stains on his jeans. "I picked up that tea you like," he said, placing the bag gently on the counter. "How kind of you." I endeavored to maintain a steady tone in my voice. Recently, even the tiniest gestures of goodwill seemed to constrict my heart. He approached and settled next to me, near yet not overly so, as if he wished to respect my space. I gazed at him then, truly gazed, and perceived a change within him. Perhaps it was the subtle droop of his shoulders, or the tightening of his jaw in silence that caught my attention. He bore an object with him. A palpable sensation coursed through me. "Are you all right?" I inquired gently. He paused, uncertainty flickering in his eyes. "Indeed. Well, I'm not entirely sure. My mind has been occupied with thoughts lately." "What about father?" I surmised. He inclined his head in acknowledgement. "Concerning all matters. You, at the current state of existence." I placed my hand gently atop his. "We are both finding our way through this transition. I understand that it's a challenging endeavor." Daniel gulped, his throat constricting as his Adam's apple rose and fell. The memories of that night linger, the moments following the hospital still vivid in my mind. "You have not found rest. You merely occupied Dad's chair throughout the entire night." I cast my gaze downward, a subtle smile gracing my lips. The bed felt unbearable in his absence. The chair still carried the lingering scent of his cologne. A prolonged silence enveloped us, stretching on for what felt like an eternity. In the stillness of the evening, the sharp barks of a neighbor's dog pierced the air. The sound of a car door slamming echoed in the air. "I miss him every day," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. I responded in kind, echoing the sentiment, beyond my wildest expectations. He then turned to me, and in his eyes I glimpsed something unfamiliar, something I had never encountered before, indeed vulnerability. Yet there is another aspect to consider. Query, one that lingered just before his lips, heavy with unspoken peril. "What is it that you seek, Daniel?" He swept his fingers through his hair, releasing a shaky breath. "Mom, I have a question for you, and I hope you can stay calm while I ask it. Please just hear me out, alright?" In that moment I found myself frozen, my eyelids fluttering shut. "Your presence is unsettling me." No, it's not anything negative. Not in that manner." He halted, his gaze probing my expression. "Have you ever experienced that sensation of being filled with something, even when you should feel completely empty?" I inclined my head. "Could you clarify what you mean?" He cast his gaze downward, intertwining his fingers as if he were a young lad admitting to shattering a window. "Ever since Dad passed, I felt this undeniable pull in your direction, not solely due to the fact that you are my mother and require assistance. It transcends mere understanding, and it fills me with a profound sense of dread." I remained utterly still. My heart faltered, caught in a delicate dance between racing and halting altogether. "Daniela," he glanced upward with urgency, his eyes filled with desperation. "I understand how this may come across. I have replayed it countless times in my mind. I found myself repeatedly attempting to persuade my mind that it was merely sorrow, or perhaps a sense of isolation. Yet it remained steadfast. With a slight tremor in my hands, I extended my reach toward the glass of water resting on the coffee table. "We have endured a great deal together. Perhaps we are merely mistaking connection for something entirely different." "Perhaps," he remarked, "yet what if we are not?" The silence expanded once more, denser and more oppressive than before. I rose and made my way to the window, seeking to collect my scattered thoughts. The garden was alive with vibrant blooms, the peonies Michael had planted in the spring before his illness bloomed, expansive and pink, as if oblivious to the shift in the world around them. Daniel lingered just behind me, a silent presence, poised and expectant, as if he were holding his breath for my words to break the stillness. I finally declared, "This is not a matter we can simply resolve in a single afternoon's conversation. I am aware. My heart belongs to you, Daniel. I shall forever remain steadfast. Yet I require a moment to grasp the depths of your emotions, as well as my own." He inclined his head with deliberation. "Very well, I shall bide my time." I could no longer contain it within me. I glanced at him, observing the young man he had grown into, almost imperceptibly, right before my eyes. "I find myself in the same predicament." He approached me then, not to caress, not to embrace, merely to linger nearby, as if he wished for me to sense that we remained connected. Despite the evolving contours of our bond, we remained in that moment until the sun started its descent, the light stretching out shadows that danced across the floor. In the serene hush of our tranquil home I found, for the first time in ages, a sense of companionship that eased the weight of solitude. That evening, once Daniel had departed, I settled into Michael's worn chair and enveloped myself in one of his cozy cardigans. The delicate wool retained a subtle essence of him, and I wrapped it more snugly around myself, as if it might somehow keep me whole. My thoughts refused to find peace. Daniel's words had stirred a deep-seated truth within me, one I had long been reluctant to confront. Lately I have brushed aside a multitude of my emotions, attributing them to grief, fatigue, or the overwhelming solitude that ensues after losing someone who has been the cornerstone of my existence. Yet now it seemed more intricate, entwined with an essence that was both disquieting and oddly reassuring. I found myself wide awake, unable to drift into slumber. Instead, I found myself gazing at the ceiling, attuned to the cadence of the night, the sporadic creak of aged pipes, the distant murmur of a car gliding by, the gentle caress of the wind against the windows, and beneath it all my heart beat, unwavering yet hesitant. The following morning, I drifted through the kitchen as if on autopilot. I poured the coffee, yet it remained untouched. I meandered through the home, caressing the backs of chairs, letting my fingers glide over the surfaces of picture frames. Everything appeared more vibrant, as if the world had acquired an unusual sharpness. At the stroke of noon, my phone vibrated with a sudden buzz. "Is that you, Daniel? Would it be alright if I dropped by later?" I gazed at the message for a whole minute before crafting my response. "Myself, certainly." Upon his arrival that afternoon, he appeared uncertain, as if grappling with how to present himself. He had always exuded confidence in my presence, displaying affection with ease, quick to embrace and to jest. Yet now, each of his actions seemed deliberate. He held up a small brown bag from the garden center and said, "I brought those bulbs you wanted to plant. Those slipped my mind. I thought they would enhance the yard beautifully." For an hour we toiled in the garden, our words few and far between. The cool, damp earth yielded to our hands as we engaged in the rhythmic dance of digging, placing and covering, a strangely soothing experience that enveloped us. Occasionally our arms would graze against each other, or our gazes would linger for just a heartbeat too long. Yet it remained unspoken between us, not at this moment. As we stepped through the door, our shoes caked in mud and our cheeks warmed by the sun, I extended a glass of lemonade to him. He trailed behind me into the kitchen, his gaze fixed on my every movement as if I were a delicate thing. I rested my weight against the counter. Concerning the events of yesterday, he gave a swift nod. "Indeed, it has occupied my thoughts incessantly." I found myself questioning whether I ought to have spoken up at all. "I'm pleased you took that step. It was something I truly needed to hear." "Are you not feeling any anger? Furious?" I nearly chuckled, yet the sound emerged as a gentle and peculiar whisper. "I find myself in a state of confusion, Daniel. I'm feeling a sense of overwhelm. Yet I find no anger within me." He moved nearer, his voice barely above a whisper. "I find myself perceiving you as something beyond the role of a mother, not in a manner that lacks respect, merely as a woman, an individual, a person who has endured suffering, yet remains beautiful, kind, and resilient." My breath hitched. "Danielua," he remained at a distance, unmoving. They gazed at me, their eyes a blend of warmth and uncertainty. "It feels as though I have emerged from slumber, beholding you anew." I averted my gaze, preoccupying my hands with the towel by the sink, yet my heart raced once more. A peculiar warmth enveloped the room, lingering in the air like an uninvited guest, subtle yet impossible to ignore. "I find myself at a loss with your words," I whispered. "This is an eventuality we were never equipped to face. I am aware." He paused, uncertainty flickering in his eyes. "Perhaps it is a revelation we were destined to uncover, even if it defies all logic, even if it fills us with fear." A profound silence lingered in the air. My thoughts linger persistently. I spoke, my gaze averted, reflecting on the extent of myself that I had offered to your father. "After 38 years I find myself lost, unsure of my identity in his absence." Daniel approached, yet maintained a careful distance. "Perhaps this is precisely what it is, your journey of self-discovery." "Same here." I pivoted to meet his gaze. The gentle afternoon light streaming through the kitchen window enveloped him in a warm golden embrace. In that fleeting moment, he bore an uncanny resemblance to Michael, stirring a deep ache within my chest. Yet he remained unmistakably his own person. I extended my hand, delicately sweeping a leaf from his shoulder. He remained unyielding. "This is not a matter to be hurried," I remarked. "We are not obligated to provide answers to anyone. Yet we have a duty to one another to uphold honesty." "I desire that," he murmured, "more than anything else." We concluded the evening on the porch, enveloped in blankets as the sky transformed into hues of orange and lilac. Daniel shared with me the vivid recollections of his early years, memories that had faded into the recesses of my mind. In the quiet moments of household chores, I would find myself singing softly as I folded the laundry. How I wept when he scraped his knee at the tender age of 5. He had always understood that I was the adhesive binding our family as one. I shared with him the depths of my loneliness, the stillness of the early hours. In the stillness of the night, I would often find myself yearning for Michael's voice, only to be reminded that it was a sound I would never hear again. We remained untouched. We maintained our boundaries, yet in the gentle embrace of the evening light. As the air turned crisp and the fragrance of jasmine wafted from the garden, I sensed a connection beginning to blossom between us. Something fragile and hesitant, yet unmistakably authentic. It was an occurrence neither of us had sought, yet perhaps in its own way, it was precisely what we both required. The subsequent days resembled a precarious balancing act. Daniel visited more frequently, yet we moved in a delicate, measured cadence, skirting the edges of each other's presence. We would gather in the den, engaging in conversations that danced around the void of significance. Classic films, his profession, the bothersome dog next door. Yet beneath each word lay a weightier truth, unspoken yet always felt. A pleasant, nuanced yet unmistakable. At times I would find him observing me, not in a manner that unsettled me, but rather as if he were attempting to commit something to memory. The gentle incline of my shoulders, the melody of my laughter, the manner in which I swirled my tea, it stirred something within me. Noted, after countless months of floating through existence unnoticed, it awakened a profound sensation within me, something I had concealed long before Michael departed. On a rainy evening, I extended an invitation to Daniel to join me for dinner. Simple fare, just meatloaf and green beans, reminiscent of the meals I prepared when he was still under my roof. He arranged the table as I wrapped up my tasks in the kitchen, and an odd sense of normalcy enveloped us, as if we had unwittingly traveled back in time. We dined with a deliberate slowness, enveloped in silence. I observed the way his gaze rested on my features as I spoke, how he grinned at my tales as if they were fresh and new, despite having heard them countless times before. As I finished, I extended my hand to collect his plate, but he halted me with a soft touch on my hand. "May I share a thought?" he inquired, his tone hushed. I nodded, my heart racing with anticipation. "I'm aware that we've exercised caution. I understand that you require some distance to navigate your thoughts. Yet, I can no longer feign that what I experience is merely a misdirected sentiment. It transcends mere sorrow. Not any longer." Our eyes locked, yet words eluded me. The atmosphere surrounding us had grown dense. "I understand how this may come across," he continued. "I understand the thoughts that may cross people's minds. Yet, in your presence the world aligns perfectly. I feel calm, whole. At last I release my breath, deliberately and with care. It frightens me, Daniel, not due to your presence, but because a part of me resonates with it as well, and I find myself at a loss for how to navigate that feeling." He inclined his head in acknowledgement. "I'm not requesting that you make any decisions this evening. I want you to understand that my presence is with you. I shall wait, no matter how long it may require." I rose and collected the plates, driven by a need to shift, to inhale deeply. He trailed behind me to the sink, and in quietude we washed and dried our hands, our shoulders occasionally grazing against one another. It was a domestic cadence I hadn't experienced with anyone since Michael, and it felt instinctive, excessively organic. In the stillness of that night, after he had departed, I found myself before the hallway mirror, lost in contemplation of my own reflection. I observed a woman adorned with delicate lines framing her eyes, her temples kissed by strands of silver, Yet I perceived another aspect, one that was gentler, more vibrant. It felt as though a dormant part of me was awakening after an extended, frigid winter. I caressed the cheek of my reflection, as if attempting to map the contours of my former self, the essence of who I was evolving into. Upon the dawn of the following day, I discovered a note awaiting me on the front porch. It seems that Daniel may have forgotten it during his commute to work. Mom Laura, I understand that the boundaries between us may seem unclear, but my words were sincere. I perceive you not merely as the mother who nurtured me, nor solely as the woman who cherished Dad, but as the individual you embody in this very moment. I no longer flee from that. Forever yours, Daniel. For what felt like an eternity, I lingered with the letter resting in my lap, the tea beside me growing cold and forgotten. A garden bed lay dormant by the fence, untouched since the previous year. It lay in a state of neglect, consumed by a tangle of weeds. By noon I found myself immersed in the earth, pulling roots, clearing soil and laying down fresh compost. My hands moved with a natural rhythm, the ache in my arms a familiar companion. Dirt nestled beneath my nails, and the sun casting a gentle warmth on the back of my neck. As I lifted my gaze, I found Daniel propped against the gate, observing me intently. I had no idea you were coming today, I remarked, taken aback. I happened to be in the area, he remarked, a gentle smile gracing his lips. He moved in, hands tucked into his pockets, his jeans marked with splatters of paint from the day's labor. You look good up here, he remarked, soiled and weary. With a smile he responded. After a moment of uncertainty I finally spoke. I received your note. I truly meant every word. I am aware. We lingered in silence, our gazes locked for a fleeting moment. In a moment of spontaneity I extended my hand and grazed his arm, a soft caress of my fingertips. His breath hitched and he remained still. Daniel, I murmured, I'm not sure what we're doing. Neither do I, he said, his voice quivering just a bit. Yet I am certain that fear no longer holds me captive. I was not either. As dusk settled we nestled on the couch, our bodies drawn close in the intimate embrace of the evening. The television flickered with images, yet our eyes remained elsewhere, untouched by its glow. We conversed about a myriad of topics, yet somehow, it felt as if we had touched upon neither the profound nor the trivial. Reflecting on that fateful day when, at the tender age of 10, he took a leap from the porch, only to find himself grappling with the consequences of a broken arm. He would lie beside me during storms, seeking solace from the thunder he so despised. In a sense, we had perpetually supported one another. In that moment, he extended his hand towards mine, a silent invitation that spoke volumes. I allowed him to proceed. It lacked any semblance of romance, not quite. It was an essence more profound, a creation forged through the passage of time, woven with threads of suffering and restoration. His thumb glided softly over my knuckles, and I shut my eyes, allowing the silence to envelop us like a warm embrace. After what felt like an eternity, I finally experienced a sense of wholeness. A sense of completeness enveloped me, not due to the arrival of a savior, but rather because someone had come to visit me, and I had allowed him to do so. The days that followed unfolded with a tender grace. That's the term that continually resonates within me. Gentle. Time flowed gently, unencumbered by urgency or design. There were slow mornings filled with the promise of longer conversations, leisurely walks in the backyard, and dinners where we lingered at the table, savoring the moments long after the plates had been cleared. A transformation had taken root within me, palpable in my movements, in the glances I exchanged with Daniel, and in the way he regarded me in return. He had outgrown the innocence of boyhood. The truth had taken root within me. its presence undeniable and complete. He was a man marked by his own heartache, his own tenderness, and his own quiet strength, and I, after all this time, had finally started to perceive myself not merely as a widow, not solely as his mother, but as a woman once more. On a serene afternoon, a gentle breeze wafted through the open window as I immersed myself in a book. Daniel arrived after work, clad in his dusty attire, and sprawled out on the carpet by my feet, arms tucked behind his head just as he did in his younger days. The way he looked up at me, a smile gracing his lips as if he were exactly where he longed to be, stirred something within me that I couldn't quite articulate. Perhaps I no longer required it. "May I pose a question to you?" I declared, placing the book gently on the table. "Anything at all. What do you imagine your father would express if he were present in this moment? Or we?" Concerning this, Daniel's expression became gentler. "That thought has lingered in my mind more than I care to acknowledge. Same here. I believe," he said, his voice measured, "that he would wish for your happiness. He cherished you deeply, Mom. He often remarked that you were the finest aspect of his existence. And if he understood that I could truly look after you, genuinely cherish you, he wouldn't obstruct our path." I nodded. Yet the weight of emotion lodged heavily in my throat. Words eluded me. Daniel rose to his knees, positioning himself beside the couch where I lingered. He extended his hand toward mine, pressing a gentle kiss to its back before placing it tenderly against his chest. "I have no intention of taking his place. I was never able to. I have no desire to diminish what you shared with him. I understand," I murmured. "I simply wish to embody whatever it is you require, to align with what feels most authentic for you." In that instant, a revelation washed over me, one that caught me off guard. Not merely the fact that I had shattered my heart for the sake of something novel, but rather the notion that perhaps, just perhaps, what Daniel and I were uncovering transcended the idea of substitution. It was a matter of paying tribute to our shared losses, by selecting something complete and restorative in exchange. That evening we delved into the nostalgia of old photo albums together, his face illuminated with joy as he gazed at the images of his youth. Memories of holidays, school performances, and seaside adventures. A photograph captured a moment of joy, with Michael cradling the toddler in his arms, both beaming with delight. I caressed its edge softly. "Do you believe he anticipated this turn of events?" Daniel inquired, his voice barely above a whisper. "No," I replied, yet he always insisted otherwise. Love discovers us in the most surprising of manners. The following morning, I awoke with a sense of tranquility enveloping me. Calmness envelopes me, and courage courses through my veins. I took my time getting dressed, ran a brush through my hair, and stood before the mirror once more. In this moment I beheld my own reflection. I am neither the woman I once was nor the one I aspired to be. Only I exist in this moment, present and aware. As Daniel made his entrance, he carried with him the aroma of coffee and the warmth of fresh croissants. We settled onto the porch, basking in the gentle ascent of the sun. The heavens stretched wide, unmarred by clouds, while a gentle zephyr danced through the air. "I found myself pondering," I remarked. He gazed at me, fully engaged, poised in anticipation. I yearned to cease this evasion, to confront the reality of us. His eyes brimmed with emotion as he extended his hand toward mine. I remained steadfast. I expressed my uncertainty about what the future holds. Uncertainty lingers regarding others' perceptions. Yet the sensation of your presence ignites a vitality within me that I haven't experienced in years." He nodded, his lips parting to release a breath he had been holding. "Same here." I rested my shoulder against his, and we lingered in that moment, attuned to the whisper of the leaves and the faint echoes of children's laughter drifting from down the street. As the day drew to a close, We nestled the final bulbs into the earth of the garden. The earth embraced warmth and softness, while the sun danced upon the silver strands of my hair, reminiscent of those cherished days in Michael's beloved months. Daniel placed his hand over mine as we worked the soil, his touch unwavering. Labels were unnecessary, and grand declarations felt superfluous. What we exchanged transcended mere logic. The essence of it was healing. On the journey into the unfamiliar, we moved with elegance, led not by constraints or expectations, but by authenticity and a gentle, steadfast compassion. As the days unfolded, a new connection began to blossom between us, subtle, fragile, yet undeniably genuine. As the peonies unfurled their petals once more in the embrace of spring, I came to a profound realization. I had discovered not merely love, but the bravery to embrace it fully. In the most unexpected of settings, I discovered my presence, and I was accompanied.